Thank you for joining me for sketchbook tour number 2. Here we have my sketchbooks 2 and 3. I'm choosing to include number 3 because that's where my watercolors take a different turn. If you saw my original tour, you can see that I'm still using pen in this one. I outline my sketches in pen and then I fill them in. Just to remind you that I was self-taught and I was still trying to find my feet. And you might think, yeah, but she knows how to draw an orange. I kind of didn't in those days. So it just gave me a bit more confidence so that I had a framework to work from. This is actually one of my friend's teacups. I said, oh, I must paint this. Packaging, again, is hit and miss. I think this is overworked. You can see where I've tried to fill in the lettering. It's something that I'm interested in doing more of, but I just didn't get it right, I don't think, in this one. These were a lot better. I think I probably learnt from that last one, and I was able to work with a lot lighter hand. Compositionally, it's a bit hit and miss. I'm learning as I go along. I did find that I started picking up bits and pieces from jumble sales and second-hand stores just so that I could paint them. I did keep them afterwards. Again, this one was overworked. I really love the packaging for Charbonneau and Walker chocolates, but you can't see enough contrast. This is my daughter's pencil case, which I love, and I wish I had been given it. By sketchbook number 2, I had committed to sketching every day if at all possible. So I was taking this actually to a weekend at my parents', and that fuchsia was in their garden, and this is one of their ornaments. It may seem that these everyday objects are so banal, but I was really learning so much. You can see I couldn't quite fit this onto the page. This is a really lovely tasting green tea. Again, not enough contrast happening here, but I'm learning all the time. Proportionally, this pepper is a little bit thin. It's a lot fatter, but I learnt a lot about putting shadows in there. If you didn't know the context, I was basically a stay-at-home mother, and I was literally painting anything that I had around the house. I started raiding my library, and you'll see in future sketchbooks, I just started painting my books as well on top of everything else that I had around the house. This is actually my daughter's teeth marks in those. Watermelon's her favourite thing. These were flowers from a walk that I made to and from school. Another book. I am showing you every page of this sketchbook just so that you know that sometimes it doesn't work out. Like this bag of spelt flower, there's not enough contrast there. It got too muddy. Whereas this buddleia, I was trying to work out how can I give the impression of little petals in there. So I had to work out different ways of doing things. It really was trial and error. I wasn't expecting every single sketch to turn out amazing, and you can see the proportions of that book is all wrong, but I just had a whole lot of fun. I am always fascinated by sort of reflections and the play of light and dark, and I hadn't quite got it right here because I overworked it, and you can see that I applied gouache to try and save it somewhat, but it was part of the expectations that whatever I did, it was neither right or wrong, because either way I would be able to move on to the next phase. I know this is something that other sketchbook artists may struggle with, especially if they're just starting. They have such high expectations that every single page has to look amazing, and making progress in your practice just doesn't work that way. This is actually from a cherry tree that is in a local sports centre. It's just behind the sports centre, so when the cherries are in season, I go and pick them. As a teacher, I'm often contacted by people saying, I just don't know what to paint every day. And as you can see, I am painting things from my garden, painting things that I have around the house. From every single piece, I just think I can learn from this. I can learn from that jasmine, that apple, that passion flower, my houseplants even. It's all there to be observed, and I'm making great notes about them. By this stage I was actually in the south of France. This is the rooftops in Marseille. And this is now in Cassis. This is the Calanques in the south of France, and that's Cassis Harbour. These are just various vantage points that I sat to sketch. And that's the view when we were having our dinners.
There were beautiful oleanders everywhere, and I wasn't trying to capture them exactly, it was just my interpretation. I have to admit these were actually worked from photos that I took because I had my kids with me and they were only very small and it was really tricky to just sit there and paint. But we had a fantastic time and I'm really glad I recorded this in my sketchbook. Please remember this was only my second sketchbook and I was just aiming to grow rather than produce a successful piece every time.
Sketchbook number 3, which I started on the 22nd of August. We're slowly approaching autumn here, so it was maybe going to see a lot more produce. This came in our vegetable box, and this is my favourite teapot. Again, I think looking at the other stuff before, I had a better sense of adding highlights to shiny objects in this one, although my composition could be a bit better.
I wasn't painting these because I thought they would be easy. It was just a chance for me to extend my skills. Even the carrots out of my garden didn't escape.
Now this one is really important because I stopped using the black line, I stopped using the crutch, let's say, because I was really late to go to a party. I wanted to do a painting before I left and I just thought I haven't got time to draw these poppy heads, so I just painted them straight on. And as you can see, they're a little bit, there's not enough contrast and there's not enough depth, but the main thing was that I had decided I was going to continue without the black pen. So you can see that this is becoming better in terms of creating depth and texture, and the only way to learn for me was to keep on doing it. Around about this time, my daughter and I started painting together, and what you see in the next few pages is actually her ideas for sketches, and she actually has her own sketchbook. I should actually dig it out and show you guys. These are all her ideas and they're very geometric and simple because she was only 5 at the time, it's what she could do, and actually her versions are a lot better than my versions. You can see that these are really tight.
What we're dealing with is comfort zones. She was in her comfort zone of bold and simple shapes and geometrics and I was out of my comfort zone. Painting together was such a wonderful experience and both of us loved it. By this stage we're getting into autumnal themes like these leaves, and over the page there's mushrooms and berries, and it may look like I'm flitting from one thing to another. I didn't want to limit myself or limit my understanding of shadows or contrast or how light reflects off certain objects. It's all valuable.
These pairs are some of my favourite sketches ever. I think from this page onwards I felt that I was a lot more in charge of my watercolours, only because I understood a lot better how this cauliflowering worked, and I loved the tonality of these pairs. There's a lot of different colours mixed in there and I love the texture that is created. And also you notice that I use pens to add this stem detail, and this is becoming a bit of a characteristic for me.
I hope you'll see that for me it wasn't about immediate perfection. For me it was a feeling that I was trying something new, something I didn't know before. It was the learning and to overcome challenges and make progress little by little, day after day. Another thing I started to do during this time, which you can see, is I painted multiple versions of apples or lemons or strawberries, just so that I could understand better the shape or the texture. I wasn't expecting my watercolour ability to just show up. I just knew I had a mountain of learning I had to climb first. It wasn't a case of I have watercolour skills or I don't. I just said to myself, I don't understand about shadows within that pepper. This garlic is overworked. What can I do next time? Not just practically, but also in my head. What can I tell myself so that I don't overwork my sketches in the future? I'm very sincere when I say the fun for me was the actual act of learning, putting that brush onto the paper every day and see what came out. Did I do a good job here? Where could I have improved the next day? And that really is down to the mindset. And it's what compelled me to turn up every day to sketch.